This week has just been different for me. I'm just going to say different. So I actually had not had the opportunity to really um, manifest a guest for this week. And I started thinking about it, and I was just like, well, maybe, just maybe it's meant for me to come on this time as a kind of an interim and just talk about some things, and maybe recap some of the things that we've talked about so far. So, just to go back, the very first podcast was basically a learning experience, right? I was just kind of testing the waters, making sure, see if anything would work. And so it actually did work. And so I was just like, okay, let's keep going, right? So that's one of the things that I have actually started during this time. I was home more, and I really had a little bit more time to devise thoughts in my head and actually commit to them, write them in a calendar and really commit. And that's one thing that I tell people about all the time is writing things down, because we can always say that we want to do things, but it's not until we actually pull out a calendar and write it down and commit to it that it's actually going to be done. So, if we think about some of the things that we have thought about in the past, there's many, many ideas that I've had, and I'm sure you can relate to what I wanted to do or what I wanted to start, or, when it comes to fitness journey, what the goal that I wanted, right? But I never actually, it took me, well, I'll just say it took me a very long time to really learn how to commit to those goals by writing them down and actually saying, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Okay. And I wanted to also do this because I wanted you guys to have a way to reach out, ask questions, and kind of allow me to devise who is going to come on to the show and who is going to provide the most value to those people who are listening. So that's why I always welcome everyone to, send me messages, send me emails. I've had a couple of people reply to my emails when I send out the mass email about the podcast. Um, and I really just invite you to, consider just knowing that you are not alone in any of it. Okay. Everything that is shared on these podcasts, the reason that it may seem like those of us who are on here, or maybe you look at me and you're like, oh, she's farther ahead. But guess what? I do that with a lot of people too, and in reality, it's not necessarily that they're farther ahead. It's just that they've been doing it longer. Okay. So for instance, I had a really good friend of mine that I've known her for about 16 years now. She reached out to me and she wanted to do better with her health, and she needed to start with that. And during this time, she wanted to utilize it because she was out of work, and she just really wanted to kind of hone in on her health because it was something that she hadn't really been focusing on much because she was working so much. And so I've been able to, help her through that journey. And in that, she's actually learning that, it doesn't happen overnight, right? And she actually mentioned this morning, as a matter of fact, that, the workouts were challenging. And she said that, some of the stuff I do is really difficult. And I had to remind her, it's not, I've been that beginner. I've been the one who could barely make it. I have been the one who had to start over. I've had 3 knee surgeries and 2 shoulder surgeries. I've had to start over so many times. I've been that person. So in reality, I've just been doing it longer. Like it's not that I'm better. It's not that I'm any different from anybody else. I've just been doing the stuff longer, and that's it. Okay. So I think when we start doing those comparisons, it's really, it can be effective if we use the comparisons to propel us forward. But if those comparisons are kind of holding us back and making us ponder things that, well, I wish that I was there, or I wish that I could do that. If those comparisons are causing that, then I definitely would recommend to kind of just stay away from them altogether. Okay. Because what happens is we end up, kind of faulting ourselves or feeling bad about ourselves. And then it just causes this whole downward spiral. And it can really just create some internal chaos. And it will keep us from accomplishing amazing things. And I'm saying that from personal experience. Okay. So, with that being said, when it comes to strategies for getting by, um, one of the big things, like I said, is just writing things down. Whether it's journaling, um, just having a notebook with you. I have a notebook with me at all times. If I come up with an idea for something, I try to write it down. So that way I can, make sure I don't forget about it, because a lot of times, it's a thought and then we forget about it. So that's one of the things that I've started doing, is just making sure I have a notebook with me, some sort of anything. Some people use their phone, but just make sure if you have an idea about something or a thought, don't just dismiss it. Don't dismiss it. Don't be so quick to dismiss it. Actually take the time and write it down and keep it. They have those, like on your phone, there's apps that you can use for voice recording. You can actually just talk right into it, record it, do something, make sure it doesn't just get dismissed. Okay. Because when you start dismissing your own thoughts, it becomes a very dangerous downward spiral. Okay. So just remember that the thoughts in your head can be very important, whether they are positive or negative. Write them all down, okay? Because one day those thoughts are either going to be something that you can look back on and say, you know what, I've come a long way, or they might be something like I had, where I was able to write a book out of it, and those are the thoughts that I'm going to continue using to write more books. So, those thoughts, just like I said, don't dismiss them. Have something to write it all down. Another thing that I work with people a lot on is time management, scheduling out some time for yourself, making sure you have time for others. That's been really important for me, especially this last week. I took on a pretty high-end client, and I'm over there a lot. I'm over there every day. And, I really still have to remain balanced. So I still have to keep my morning routine, and I still need to make sure that I take care of myself before I try to take on the world. Okay. And that's something that is really important, is taking care of yourself, and making sure that you keep the promises that you have for yourself, and sometimes I ask people, like, would you treat someone else like you treat yourself? And a lot of times the answer is no. And even with myself, when I had to start turning that mirror around and just self-analyzing, and that's what I had to do, is like, would you treat other people like you're treating yourself? Well, no. Would I not keep commitments to other people? Not purposely, definitely not. If I commit to someone, unless it's an emergency, I'm going to make sure that I fulfill that commitment. So why would I not treat myself like that? Right? So I think that's something that is truly important when we go on this journey, is just making sure that we are taking care of ourselves. Don't put yourself on the back burner. Okay. I had someone reach out to me, one of my previous clients, and she's actually a really good friend now. She emailed me and she said, Jody, she said, one of the things that I'm doing now is I'm gardening with my children. And so they have this thing that they're doing together right now. And they are really just focusing on spending time together and using this time to build a bond and a relationship. And I just thought that was so amazing. Like they're gardening together and they're bonding. So that is awesome. I love when people reach out and tell me, what's working for you right now, because guess what? If it's something that you're doing, someone else may need to hear that, because maybe they haven't thought of that. Like, how many of you out there have thought about maybe gardening with your children? I hope some. I know we hadn't. It wasn't one thing that we had really thought of. Um, but it's just spending time with the people that we love and we care about. Because honestly, you guys, the time we have here is not promised. Okay. And it's, I know that with the coronavirus going on right now, so, if anybody's listening to this podcast like a year from now, this is being recorded during the coronavirus quote unquote crisis. um, so, it's just one of those things that we're going through right now. The kids are out of school. A lot of people have been out of work, and trying to just make ends meet. And, what are these people doing during this time? I know a lot of times I see, especially on social media, if I see a couple of people that I know, I've noticed that many people have actually used this time to be more productive in other things. They're realizing that maybe the path that they were on wasn't really the right path for them. And so they've actually begun working on different things that they feel even better about, right? So, it's always a choice, you guys. It's always a choice. We all have a choice of how we are going to react in any time. Okay. So whether it's coronavirus or, back in the day they had HIV crisis, there's so many things that go on. If any of us were around, which I'm sure most of us were around, when the government had this shutdown back in 2008, there was another one I remember that impacted us coming up on 2011, 2012. I remember there was 1 month where I couldn't even pay my rent. And I was in the military. We didn't get that check on the first, so this is not the first crisis that we have gone through. And I just think it's important that we remember that we are all in this together. Okay. We're not enemies. We are not here to judge one another. I've also seen, some posts where people are kind of judging other people for choices they're making. It's not our job, you guys. It's not our job to do that. Okay. It's our job to operate with full confidence, knowing that we are here for a purpose. And, literally, I could walk outside, I could get in my car, drive down the street, and get in an accident and be gone that day. It's not going to take necessarily a virus to take me out, if I'm meant to be here, I'm going to be here. And so I just have to think about it that way. When I leave the house every day, I'm always hugging my family, telling them I love them, because when I leave, I don't know. It's not promised to me, right? I don't have that. I'm not psychic. I don't know what's going to happen when I leave. So to me, it's important to just make sure that whatever I say is something good, right? So when I leave in the mornings, I'm always making sure that I say something positive. Um, and that way, if it is the last words that I get to say to my family, it was nothing negative. Okay, so think about that. Think about, when you do leave the house, how do you leave the house? Are you grateful? Are you the light when you go places? Are you smiling at people? Or do you just look miserable? Are you allowing the things that you can't control to control you? Because that can be so, so detrimental to growth, to personal development. And like I said, you guys, I'm saying all this because literally I have been there. I've been that person who was allowing things that were out of my control to control me so much to where I was just miserable. I was miserable. And then I had to think about, the people that were around me. And I was really welcoming that same energy around me. So then not only am I miserable, but now I have people around me who are miserable. And what does that look like? Right? So just think about that. If you've ever heard the quote, misery loves company, don't be the misery. And like I said, that's a choice that we all have. And all it takes is for us to just say, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Right? That's what I did last year. That's what I had to do. I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to feel defeated at the end of the day anymore. I don't want to feel overwhelmed anymore. I don't want to feel lack anymore. I don't want to feel like if I don't do something crazy, then we're not gonna have a roof over our heads. Guess what? At least I have my family. If we're living out of a car, so be it. I won't be the only one, right? So I think sometimes we focus so much on those little things, the things that we think that we need to make to kind of validate ourselves and have that identity, um, that we sometimes forget the most important things in our lives, right? And so I just really hope and pray that you're able to get some value out of this conversation. And I truly pray for those who are struggling at this time. I really truly hope that if you're listening to this, that you're able to find some clarity and some positivity and just being to be grateful for the fact that you are able to wake up in the morning. And if you have a family, be grateful for that family, the good, the bad, the ugly, um, because you have that family. So this weekend is Mother's Day, and I just want to go ahead and say to all the mothers out there that you are amazing, you are enough, and whether your kids show it or not, I'm sure they are truly grateful for you. Um, as most of you know, my mother passed away 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago now. And it's actually been about 10 and a half years. And this day is usually pretty difficult for me. But as we grow, we also have to realize that, we can't allow the people who are no longer on this earth, we can't allow the lack there to keep us from going forward as well. Okay, so I know that my mother is proud of me. I know that she's looking out for me. I know that she's looking out for my family. I know that she is looking down and just hopefully smiling. Because everything, I know for a while she felt really bad about some of the choices she had made when I was growing up. But what I really just hope that she realizes is that every journey that I went through with her at a younger age has really brought me to become the person that I am today. So, while it took a long time to get through some of those things and to really evaluate some of the things and how they were affecting me and to really dig into my subconscious and things that I had suppressed and really thought were gone. Those feelings don't go away, you guys. So also that's something that I would definitely urge you to do, especially during this time. If you have some extra time, just do some self-evaluation. What are some goals that you have, and are you allowing yourself to achieve those goals? Do you feel worthy? Do you feel like you're deserving of those good things? Because guess what? A lot of the time, I didn't feel that way. And what I was doing was internally, I was self sabotaging and I didn't even realize it. So it's so important to really just evaluate those things. And like I said, journal, write them down, think about them, meditate on them. That's something else that I had to start doing. I had to start really just learning how to meditate. Um, and really just use this time to make some decisions on how you're going to grow from this pandemic and what you're going to be like when you come out on the other side. What type of person are you going to be? Are you going to be the same? Are you going to be better? Are you going to be a better version of yourself mentally and hopefully physically? Which person are you going to be? And how is that going to affect others in your life? If you have a family and you're not trying to grow internally and even externally, what are you showing up? How are you showing up in your life and the rest of your life? So just think about these things and don't ever fault yourself. Okay, because nothing that you're doing is your fault. Nothing that's going on in the world is your fault. But just think about these things. And it's not about playing the blame game, right? It's not about faulting ourselves or blaming ourselves for past mistakes or choices, Because guess what? The past is in the past, right? Now it's about moving forward and learning from everything and developing that mindset that you are enough and you can break through any barriers that you have in your life. We all can. And that's why I love that this is more of a community now and that we can feel comfortable talking amongst each other and really just convey these things and realize that we are all on this journey together and no one day is going to be perfect, right? So we have to learn how to be vulnerable. We have to learn how to be a little bit more transparent, and we have to learn how to kind of let go of our pride so that we can let the right people in at the right time. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the live for today, the podcast. But I just would want to say to you guys that I am truly praying for everyone. I pray for my family every day, and I just pray that you're able to give yourself some grace. If you're not accomplishing everything that you set out to do, it's okay. Just devise a new game plan, because you can't take back today or yesterday. You can't take back any of that. All you can do is start fresh tomorrow. So go ahead, get your calendars out, write down how are you going to do one thing different tomorrow that you haven't been doing this whole time. All it takes is one idea, one new thought, and then go from there. Each day you should be trying to better yourself in some way, shape, or form. Okay. So, have a 30-day calendar in front of you. What are you going to do on Saturday? What are you going to do on Sunday? What is one thing you can do? For me, the easiest thing I was able to do when I first wanted to start changing my mindset was to wake up grateful. So instead of waking up, checking my messages, checking my text, checking this, checking that, checking email, checking social media, I don't even touch my phone anymore the first at least 30 minutes of the day. I wake up, I say, Lord, thank you for waking me up. and I start the day off grateful. Be grateful if you can get out of bed. Be grateful if you're able to open your eyes. There's a lot of people who aren't able to do those things. So just be grateful, okay? Start your day off that way and then kind of take it from there. That's it. That's all you have to do. It's one step at a time. It's a journey, and it's never going to be perfect. But as long as you continue to put one foot in front of the other each and every day, and don't let the things that you have no control over control you. Only work on the things that you can control. And first and foremost, you are the only person who can control you. Okay? You can't control everyone else. You can only control you. So start there and see what happens. And maybe, just maybe, everybody around you will change too. With that being said, thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast and being on the live. I am just truly grateful again for having this opportunity, and I definitely acknowledge you for all the steps you're taking in forward directions. Keep it up. All right. Have a great weekend and happy Mother's Day. Bye.